I think yeah, okay. This is Tuesday, August 4th, and I'm Jeffrey JT Westfield interviewing Miss Janice Rocke for the Monterey County Theater Alliance oral history of the Monterey Theater Project. Welcome, Janice. I'm glad you could help us out here today. My first question, is there any story attached to your name that you'd like to share? And if not, is there any event in your early childhood which you feel most contributed to making you the person that you are today?
Well, there is a story about my middle name. My parents were Catholic, and so when I was baptized, it's the Catholic tradition to give a middle name of a saint to the baptized child. And my parents had chosen the name Blaise, which was supposed to be spelled Blaise, and the nun spelled it Blaze. So instead of getting named after a saint, I got named after a stripper, Blaze Starr, who was a famous stripper in the the 50s and early 60s. And a childhood experience. Is that what was the other part of the question? Oh, Jeff, you're muted.
I do remember St. Blaise because I was Catholic too, and they put the candles around your throat on the Feast of St. Blaise. I do remember that. But did you say that, when did you become aware of that? You weren't aware of it immediately, I gather.
Well, when I was a kid, I would just get confused because I wasn't actually sure how to spell it. And, I just would go back and forth with spellings if I had to spell my middle name. And, it never really meant much to me until I got older, and it became more significant in my early adult life. Yeah, but and then I kind of researched the name and found out where who Blake the saint was, and how it was supposed to be spelled, and
Right.
And liked that I got that it was misspelled.
Right. Would you say there was a day or a particular event that early on in your life that made you realize maybe what you thought you wanted was not the thing, and you were going to go in a different direction?
Well, honestly, I had no idea what I wanted when I was growing up. I, again, being raised Catholic, my parents were pretty old-fashioned, and I found often anytime I expressed some interest in anything, being told, well, you can't do that because you're a girl. Only boys can do that, and you're supposed to, you just need to, figure out how you're going to take care of your husband, and that's what you should be preparing for, and which I always hated. I knew what I didn't want. In my early 20s, I took some classes at MPC in acting and directing, and it was so much fun. I really had a great time, and then my life kind of took a little detour for a while, and I was down in Big Sur for a while, and then I was in Palo, Colorado Canyon, and I was living at Safania's property. Safania's a pretty well-known local artist. She lives in a dome-shaped house in Palo, Colorado Canyon, and she has workshops and so forth. Even now, because she can do them outside and keep distances. And um, anyway, yeah, so I was living there, and these tenants that she had hollowed out the bottom portion of the big dome house. And so she had this big empty space down there. And at first we were thinking, oh, we'll just, have it as a gallery because we both painted. And so we had a couple of events where there were just art shows. And then we had a couple of open mics. And then I started to get ideas for like concept ideas. And I thought, well, wouldn't it be interesting to have variety shows built around specific concepts? And that was kind of my first experience with producing events. And they were pretty hodgepodge because it was, the bottom floor of a house in the middle of the woods. I had no prior experience to producing. I didn't really know what I was doing. I was just kind of learning on my feet. But we had a lot of fun. That being Big Sur, there was a lot of partying that went along with it. So that was a lot of fun. And so then I had to get on with the business of raising my two children by myself, which was, it didn't allow for too much time to do other things. And I felt like, well, I need to be practical. So I went back to school, and, I wasn't sure what I was going to, major in. And almost immediately, I had teachers telling me, oh, you're such a good writer. And it was not just teachers in, classes where writing was the focus, but teachers in all of my classes. One was Ayaz Pirani. I don't know if you know him. He's a fabulous poet. But I forgot one thing.
Sure.
Also, in those years in between when I was, having to raise my kids and work and so forth, I did take 4 semesters of Lee Brady's playwriting class.
Okay.
I can't forget that because Lee, she's one of my favorite people on the whole planet. And she really inspired me and encouraged me to keep writing. And but then again, taking care of the kids and and I thought I'd have to be practical, so I went back to school, and then I just got led right back to writing. And I got a major. I majored in creative writing and got my degree in that.
Let me interrupt you a second, because I'm picking up one thing in particular. The little shows or productions that you did in the Big Sur time period, they were they were primarily improvisational. Yeah.
No,
they were scripted.
Yeah, we'd write comedy sketches. And so, for example, we had one called Ocean Dream. So Stefania and I did a bunch of paintings that were, ocean referenced. Like I did a big mermaid and, very, ocean themed art. And we'd use that to set the stage, and the whole room would be filled with that ocean themed art. We even painted the floor of the space like an ocean floor, which was it was really fun.
And this all predated your playwriting classes and all that. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So if you want to pick it up with about what was Lee, the playwright teacher.
Well, kind of inspired me to take the playwriting classes, because for these little shows we would write comedy sketches, short comedy sketches. And so I wanted to kind of just get better, at that kind of sketch comedy writing. And then I ended up Well, actually, what it was I had an idea for a play um, with a. It, I can't even explain it. It was very complicated, but um, so I took the class and I took it for 4 semesters, and it was manageable because it was just I think it was just in the fall and one night a week, and when you're single parenting, you have to you have to where are the kids going to go, and when I say single parenting, I mean really single parenting, like their dad was not in the picture at all. So it was, sometimes people say, oh, I'm a single parent, but then their kids go to their dad's house on the weekends or something, and I'm like, no, you're not.
Yeah.
It's, but I mean, but it's not for me to say, I mean, really to define what that means anyhow, but so never mind on that last comment. I just know it was challenging.
Did you ever get the play completed?
No, I didn't. And, I don't know if I will ever go back to it, but I might. I have gone back to things, and um it was a very I don't want to tell you about it because it's just it'll take up too much time. It's
Right.
too complicated.
Right. Well, if we may, before we leave your early years altogether, is there anything? Do you remember seeing a production as a kid, or seeing anything even on television that that might have sort of clued you into where to how important theater would become in your life?
Well, I sadly, my perspective when I was a kid, I was just very, I didn't have a lot, like I like, I would see other people that were doing interesting things, and I think, oh, well, they're special and they're talented, but I'm just regular and I can't do anything like that, or there's nothing extraordinary about me. And so I didn't really have I didn't dream. I didn't really dream as a kid. I didn't, but what I did do is I had a younger sister, and kids put shows together,
Yeah. Yeah.
and we would do that, and that was just so, like I remember loving that, and I remember, like setting up props, and so it was just in me to want to produce, and to write, and to direct, and to perform, and all of these things, but I just didn't have, I just, I don't know what, I just didn't like dare to dream anything.
Right. But
Makes any
it does sound like you like when you got to Big Sur, you sort of picked up on that Big Sur, artistic, creative. I mean, how many countless artists have found their muse, so to speak, down there?
well I really the thing that pushed me back into it actually was a friend of mine, Lucinda Ulrich, who is actually going to be in our play, and who I haven't worked with in years. So it's kind of really fun to work with her again. She had written a play called Queen of Thieves. Kind of, she based the characters on me and her and some other people down in Big Sur, and but it was very like almost fantasy, magical. It's hard to describe the genre, but very funny. And she'd asked me to help her with some props for that, and I made the props, and then we just kind of did a more elaborate reading of it somewhere, and I can't even remember where it was, but I had so much fun. And then I remembered having taken those directing and acting classes way back when at MPC, and I got inspired, and I just wanted to do stuff all of it. And so I have to give give her the credit, because had she not exposed me, I wouldn't have gotten, interested. And, I don't know if I would have remembered how much I loved to do things like that.
Right.
And so that was really the thing. I was kind of down in Big Sur. Honestly, I didn't really have that many friends. I was there because I had kind of rough experiences in my early adult life, and I just kind of wanted to retreat from the world, and
It has a great reputation for healing too, Big Sur.
but at a certain point that became really unhealthy, and I didn't really recognize that, because I'd look around me and it'd be so beautiful, and I was so grateful to be in all this beauty in this nature, that I didn't recognize that the isolation wasn't really healthy for me anymore. And so in 2012, oh, I'm sorry, was it 212 or 2? Yeah, 2012. Sophia had decided she was going to go a different way with her property, and so me and all the other tenants had to find other places to live. And I ended up coming back into town, which I thought they were going to have to pull me kicking and screaming out of Big Sur. But I got to town, and maybe the first year was a little rough, but that was because I had some health issues. But then I started meeting people, and I joined a writers group, and somebody else who should get a whole bunch of credit is Ebony Harris. She'd worked over at the library, but she started this writers group, and we would meet over at Panera's. And and about a year into the group, another woman joined the group named Cherie Rowe, and she's from England, and she was working with this international company, but they were at CSUMB temporarily. And she and I and Heather Flesher, who's another fabulous writer, we put together this thing called Curated Words over in PG, and that ran for a few years. And it was just a basic, literary reading series, and we'd invite people, and they'd read their work. And but then I went up to San Francisco to somebody else's reading, and it was Zarina Zabriskie. I don't know if you know who she
I know
is.
the name Zabriskie for sure.
She's a fabulous writer. She's Russian, and she's been living in the States for many years, and she is, and her partner Simon Rogue, and he's also a great writer. And they put on this event where they were going to be reading their work, but instead of just reading it, they had actors reading the dialogue and their stories. But it was relatively simplistic. It was very simplistic. But I got super excited about that idea. And I thought, well, I want to do that with one of my stories, because I've written a whole book, as you know, of stories that they're chronological. They read like chapters in the book. But you could take any one of them out of the book and read it as a solo piece, and it would make sense. So I thought, okay, I want to do one of these stories. And there was one of them with dance performances in it. And I thought, oh, I should do this one, because then we can have dance performance. And I had done some dancing when I was younger, and I was kind of excited by the idea of getting on stage and dancing again. And so that was my first time. I produced it over at the Art Center in PG. It was, compared to most everything I've done since, it was pretty relatively simplistic. And at that event, I started working with Carrie Newhouse, who's been in all of my shows but one. And she is a gorgeous dancer, and a wonderful co-conspirator at creating events.
Uh-huh.
And she, anyway, so we worked together on that show. So that was the first one. And then I tried something different with a video backdrop, and it just kind of, from there, it just kind of snowballed, event to event to event. And
Let me interrupt for a second, because it sounds like you sort of went you sort of leapt right from the writers group to self-producing production, shows of your own. And that's, I think that's fascinating, because I think so many people would have needed some years of acting classes or acting in shows and stuff like that. And you made quite a leap there, and I really commend you for that. Did it feel like you were sort of leaping off the cliff? Obviously, the kids got old enough to where your time constraints were less, right?
yeah, well, between, having, I did take the acting and directing again, when my kids were young. After after we did those shows, I did one semester of acting and directing. So I had the years I took those classes in my early 20s. I had the playwriting class. I had the a refresher course in the acting and directing. I had the experiences of doing those shows at Svanya's. And I spent 6 years as a dancer being on stage, which was it's really, oddly, a really comfortable place for me. I feel more comfortable on a stage than I do in a crowd. I feel like sometimes if I really don't enjoy being in crowds of people, I get very uncomfortable.
Right.
And I'd rather be up on a stage by myself than in the midst of a crowd, oddly enough.
Would you say that the Zabriskie Rogue exposure sort of kindled a desire to use your own personal experiences in theatrical way?
Yeah, well, to use my own stories, to use my own writing, and but then I wanted to work with other writers as well, and I knew so many of them from having done the curated words, which here again, another person to give credit to is Nicole Henares, who Nicole turned me on to so many fabulous writers. She is just an amazing networker. Excuse me. She grew up here locally, moved to San Francisco, so she knows she knows people all up and down the coast.
You need to take a break? You need to stop for a minute?
No, I'm good.
Okay.
So she knows people up and down the coast, and and she brought a lot of people in and turned me on to a lot of people. And yeah, I'm going to cough a little bit. So
right,
yeah.
let's pause it.
Geez,
now.
Okay, so where were we? I think I was talking about, so I got inspired by Simon and Zarina, and I started doing these events using my own work. And then I wanted to work with other other writers as well. And I was with this friend of mine, Megan Harris, who's an amazing singer. She lives down in LA. She was here visiting, and she asked me if I wanted to go to this music event in Salinas, and I went to Salinas, and her boyfriend at the time, Nelson, was doing the lights, Nelson Basden. And Nelson does these amazing, like, multi-layered lighting effects and with overhead projectors, and he uses video streams, and I thought it was so interesting, and I was like, wow, I would love to work with that. So So I created an event and kind of built it around that, but then I asked all of these writers to contribute to the event. And I had dancers dancing, and this was also at the Art Center. And as we were reading our work and the lights were doing all these things, Nelson was like lighting them up with his lights. And then and they had these blocks they were dancing on, and we were reading our pieces that we had written for the event. And then I that had a little slowdown there because my mother had passed away, and I I kind of just needed to, it's a big deal when your mother passes. It's
Absolutely.
I don't it's it's like you feel it in your body. It's so all consuming because we're so connected to our mothers, and even though she lived 2,000 miles away, I and then when I started working again, I did a few things over at the lab in Carmel. Again, multiple writers, and then I decided I wanted to get back on stage and dance again. So then I did like this play literary reading hybrid at Carl Cherry, and I was able to get on stage again, and that was based on my book. My book, as you know, that I wrote is about my young adult life when I was a stripper, and then I had, also some drug problems, and which fortunately are a thing of the past. But I wrote this whole book about it, and so I took some excerpts from the book and I created this show so that I could dance and I could provide space for other young women to dance, because a lot of like I've spoken to a lot of women in my life who have said, oh, I always wanted to do that, but I've never had, like the nerve to get on the stage and do that. And I thought, well, here's their opportunity to do it without actually having to like live in that world, which can be pretty dark. Like, I guess it's a little different now. They have these burlesque troupes that are fabulously empowered and run by women, and those are awesome. I don't know if you've seen any of them, but oh God, there's one that just are the Molotov Moxies out of Santa Cruz. They are amazing. Yeah. Anyway, so I did that show, and then that was at the end of 2017. And so then I scheduled another show in January with multiple writers and multiple dancers, and then we the event coordinator from the Dolly Historical Museum in Monterey came to our event at Henry Miller in January, and she reached out to me and asked me if we would be interested in doing an event at the Dolly Museum. And and this event kind of set the stage for kind of a formula, a method that I use to create events. And this is not what I do for my play festivals, because I've done 2 play festivals so far and have a play festival coming up that I'll talk about in a moment. But but the other thing that I love to do are these multimedia events where I get a prompt, and I send the prompt out to multiple writers, and then they send the work back to me, and I take each piece and I put it together into a script. Sometimes I'll write a few lines here and there to make some connective tissue. And I always write my piece last so I can use my piece to create more cohesion. Mm-hmm. And then I find places to interject dance performances, and I ask actors to come and actually read the stuff. And then we get Nelson to do the lights, and I've used oftentimes Scott. My goodness, why am I blanking on his last name? Do you remember Scott's last name?
No, I don't, but he's a wonderful guy.
He is
very capable technician.
He is.
Yeah. So they're. I'm not sure I've ever seen anything quite like what you describe and what I've seen and actually participated in. And it felt very much like you were opening your subconscious in some way, because you send out the prompt and other creative people then are kind of getting into the mix, but it still originated with you.
Yeah, and I try to come up with ideas that are not on the nose. So in other words, instead of doing a show and saying, oh, well, this show is about women or women's empowerment or women's issues or whatever, I did a show called Femme Surreal, and it was also for the Dolly. And I reached out to the writers and I said, because we had Stitch Rodriguez, who plays Dolly really well. Uh-huh. And he's the, I don't know if he still is, but he was the artist in residence at the museum for quite a while. And I reached out to people and I said, write a dialogue between a 20th century woman or transgender artist having a conversation with Dolly. And it was, and they sent him back, and it's like it's like magic, because so I get this back, and I had one person had written about Leonora Carrington, another had written about Remedios, what's her last name? Vargas. Jeez, I hate when this happens. I get blank.
We could pause it. You want to pause it?
No. Remedios Vero. Okay, and as it turns out, both of these women had gone to Mexico City during World War II, mm-hmm. Which a lot of artists actually did. And they, with another artist, Kati Horna, who no one had written about, but who I found a way to include in the show, nonetheless, were into witchcraft. They would do like these rituals. And so it just was perfect stuff for a dance performance. So we got a cauldron. It was so much fun. And we had all these dance performances. Then it turns out many of these women had had relationships with Max Ernst. And then I also decided I wanted to include Peggy Guggenheim, who was an amazing woman who, you know, she like the whole modern art movement in New York City, she was such an integral part of that, making that, you know, a place in the world for art. And so I put her in, but so there was just, and then, so just in the process of that, women's issues came to the surface. These other ideas that might have been approached head on came to the surface in these very organic ways, and that made them so much more interesting. And then there was also the issue of World War II. and how the Nazis had destroyed so much art, and how these artists had to escape. And Peggy Guggenheim, how she was in a Jewish woman in France, which we know was a super hot spot, for like they got invaded pretty quickly. Like the Nazis were there. She was there for a year, going around Paris, buying art from these artists. And I think she spent $40,000. And she then wrapped these things in blankets and packed them with other household items, put them on a boat, and smuggled them to the United States. And then she left. She brought Max Ernst with him and his family. And is that not like, that's amazing? She's what a badass woman.
Yeah.
Anyway, so all this stuff rises up out of it. And I really, I try to reach out to the writers in such a way as to provoke personal experience and what drives them as writers, and to touch on their vulnerability and their, hey, don't do that. Yeah, she likes to mess with my curtains.
Well,
On their
let me interrupt you for a sec, because I hear a passion for some of these historical characters that have really touched your heart and soul. And do you want to speak for just a second about bringing these people to life on the stage?
Sure. So I had both actors and dancers portray the artists. I brought Cody Moore in. He's a wonderful, young, really talented artist and actor. A lot of people know him. And he played Max Ernst. Came in at the last minute, did it with an accent, and he was fabulous. Carrie played Leonora Carrington, so she actually spoke the part of Leonora and danced as Leonora. And Rachel Corvasi, another really wonderful dancer, she played Kati Horna, who I gave some lines to Kati Horna because I wanted her involved, and then she danced as her. And yeah, it was, we brought them to life in multiple ways. Like I encouraged the writers to look up quotes, things that these women had actually said, and to use the quotes in their work so that the voice was more authentic rather than assuming what they might say. To really do some research and discover these women and who they were,
Including personal life details, that kind of thing.
Oh yeah, well, because there was just those stories were so interesting because when anytime like anything around war eras, where people are just so in the moment, right. There's like that. It's like it's really, it's scary. It's scary, but you're like, you don't know what's going to happen the next minute. So it seems to me that these times in history, people are really, they're just so alive.
It's sort of like now.
Yeah. I don't talk to them. I mean, I'm not around a lot of people. I'm pretty good at sheltering in place because I work from home anyway, and I spend most of my mornings writing or working on my events, and I go for hikes, and I try to only hit the grocery store once a week. But yeah, I mean, you have to make do and with what you've got, and So I did try to do an event similar to my other events back in March or early April, and it was using Mark Ziegen's work from his book that he wrote from the typewriter underground work, where he's got all this poetry, these poems written about these eccentric characters who inhabit this underground, this literary underground, where they're refusing to use technology to do their writing, and they're all typing everything and passing things around by hand. And because of that, they're kind of they're getting hunted down by authorities because it's so transgressive to be doing that.
Yeah.
And so I had all these cool little films that had been made for that event, because Mark and I, well, they're mostly people Mark knew from around the country. Filmmakers made these really awesome films based on the poems. And we did an event in Henry Miller Library, because they got that big, gorgeous film screen down there. So you were able to use the screen, and then we had dance performance, but I'm not going to go into the whole thing. It was really fun. But so we tried to do kind of a modified version of that, where Carrie Newhouse happens to be my roommate now. So she and I did dance performances, live dance performances, and also another dancer, Genevieve Marie, who lives up in Santa Cruz. And we used the Zoom format, and we played, Mark read a couple of the poems live, and then we had recordings of the films. And then also Jess Suarez had recorded himself reading one of them for us. But with the music, the sound issues on the Zoom platform I did all kinds of research to try to see how I could make it work, but apparently you need equipment, and it's tricky business.
Yeah, we're theater. We're going to definitely be technically challenged. I just want to interrupt a second, because there's some things we want to get to that are, I think, important for the interview. I happen to know, because I was involved in the tech aspects of your involvement with My Mother's Keeper, Jane Press's great play that we put on at the Cherry Theater, and you had an integral part in pulling that off. And I wondered if you just want to speak to that for just a second.
Well, actually, Jane was like a one-woman show there a lot. I mean, she had Robin. Oh gosh, what is Robin's last name? Robin McKee direct. She brought a really fabulous lighting designer up from LA. But Jane wrote and produced, acted in. She was like she did, I mean, all I did was play a part. I played Jane, which is actually not the biggest role in the play.
No, but she was a pivotal character.
Of course, I mean, because the play is about her, but there
were all these different generations of the same character in the play.
So yeah, she, all I did was play the part she gave me, and spend a lot of breakfast. Jane and I would go out to breakfast a lot and chat about that, and chat about my events, and which kind of makes me want to bridge here from what I was talking about.
Sure.
So I discovered it was very difficult to do musical things and dance performance with Zoom. So I was in a Zoom meeting, and somebody was talking about something, and it was the kind of meeting where you do talk about things that are kind of personal and sometimes intense. And I'm watching the person do this, and I could see inside their home. And I thought to myself, well, this is really interesting, like um, this thing where we're seeing into people's lives and their spaces in certain ways. And what if someone were to, start to express something really kind of intense and then decide to do something very intense, and we'd see it, we'd be a witness to it. And it gave me the idea to write plays that take place in the context of Zoom meetings. And with this notion that, we can see into people's lives and they can do extraordinary things, or extraordinary things could be happening in the background, as well as mundane things, as well as your roommate coming in and, in the middle of, or your cat jumping up and playing with the curtains or whatever. Something extraordinary might occur. And so I thought, well, what would be a funny, kind of place for that to happen, like where it was not expected. And I thought, oh, how about an NGO, a non-governmental organization, that's supposedly doing good work. So I got the idea, called Jane, and she helped me to brainstorm the bones of a play. And that is how we came up with this play called Empathy Corps. And Corps, CORPS, kind of like Mercy Corps, it's which is an NGO. In fact, Mercy Corps inspired the name of Empathy Corps, because I wanted it to be something just so over the top, like Empathy Corps. And then we came up with, well, what does the acronym mean? And so we took the letters Earth, Mana, planted around treehouse yeast, which is absolutely absurd. And so I wrote the play, and the characters are outrageous. The main character is Dr. Alma Queen, and she's a complete narcissist. And she, somebody just texted me how to use Zoom in theater. I'm going to turn my text messages off, or else it'll beep. Anyway, so Alma Queen is the main character. She has this codependent relationship with her enabling assistant, Lena Onme. And then there's the cast of, employees who are, one is passive aggressive, another is two-faced, one is a totally like lame brain tech guy who has his job because his mother is on the board of directors. And then my character, who is Felicity Dom, and she is the research analyst, very kind of nerdy. These are her glasses. But she wears her hair up. And if you go to my YouTube channel, which is just Janice Rocke on YouTube, you can see the teaser that we made for it, and so you get an idea of some of the characters.
So this is Zoom specific kind of. This is the kind of thing that couldn't even happen, wouldn't work on a traditional stage.
Well, if you had somebody build like the Zoom boxes, it could.
Okay.
But I figured, this is it. This is real life. This is the reality of where people meet and drama happens,
right,
in Zoom meetings.
Yeah.
And so, I thought, well, why not? So the play is it's a dark comedy. There's a kind of a unexpected ending, a very dramatic, unexpected ending. It's absurdist. And
how many in the cast altogether?
So there's me, Sherry Rowe, and Sherry was the one who I did that curated words with. So it's really wonderful to be working with her again. And as I said, Lucinda Ulrich, who I haven't worked with for years. Um, we're being directed by Bethany Bayan, who's really fabulously experienced and
Uh-huh.
really good at what she's doing. Um, there's Susie Nichols, who is a local actor. Cody Moore, local actor. Jason Roeder, another really great local actor.
Right.
And Julie Gillis, who I have just met through Lucinda, because we somebody else was going to do it, but unfortunately she ended up having some health issues and had to back out. So Julie just she stepped up and she's nailing it. It's wonderful.
So you've done rehearsals, obviously, and at certain at certain points, people will pop in and out of the screen. Will pop sort of. You've obviously had to deal with some technical issues in terms of sort of staging or whatever, right?
A little bit, because we don't have music. We're trying to keep it as simple as we can.
Yeah.
There's been like moments where people's screens would freeze, and we realized most of the issues had to do with everybody's personal internet sources, and that so for the event itself, we just all have to make sure we're in the right spots in our house, and
Right.
that all of that stuff. So that should be fine. And then we've got a plan in case certain things occur. Like if
Right.
it's bumped off, we have a game plan for that. Um,
Right.
and yeah, and so then I got the idea, we should just run with this and have a number of plays that are written in the context of Zoom meetings, because there are so many things you can. I mean, there's doctor's appointments, there's business meeting, there's 12-step meetings, there's people teach exercise classes. I mean, there's all this stuff on Zoom now. So this is the world as we know it at this time, so we're doing the next one is going to be called Doctor Visit. That's the name of the doctor, Doctor Visit. And it's about a doctor with an obsession with Ben Franklin,
Okay.
a world-class diagnostician who will only see patients whose names have the word Ben, Benjamin, or Franklin in them.
Okay.
So we're working on that. And we're going to be performing Empathy Core on August 14th and 15th at 7 p.m. That's a Friday and Saturday night. And then on Sunday, August 16th at 2 p.m. And you can also get any of those evenings if you want to see it live. You just go to my YouTube channel, Janice Rocke, and to the live feed on my YouTube channel,
Okay.
and there it will be.
Okay.
Yeah.
Before we wrap things up, shall we talk just a little bit about maybe something that is not so comfortable talking about, the money. The money involved in productions and that kind of thing. Do you do you want to address that at all? How much of your personal, how much, it's, I don't know, it's just interesting in terms of local theater.
Well, every once in a while I'm able to make a little bit of money. I try to always pay the technicians and stage management, and more often than not, the actors and dancers are doing it out of the goodness of their hearts and the joy of the experience. But I last year, or no, was it last year? At the end of 2018, I finally got hooked into Fractured Atlas, which is now my fiscal sponsor. And so last year, I was able to get a grant to do the Fall Play Festival, which you were involved in. You act, you help move things around. You were a treasure. You were wonderful.
Thank you. I will testify that you do pay your technicians.
Yeah. Sometimes not much, but
Okay.
That was the first time I had gotten a grant. And so I've actually applied for another grant for this project. So this weekend is not officially the project yet. We officially started in September. And this is just kind of a test run to see how it goes and to kind of get our bearings. But I applied for a grant for the specific purposes of paying the actors who are performing in these, because I feel that that's a great service to the community, that people who are used to performing have an opportunity to perform. And at a time when, funds are a little bit scarce, everybody will get a little bit of money per show. And then also, instead of asking the public to pay to watch the event, what we're going to be doing is posting on the YouTube page and also on the Facebook invitation and wherever else we can, various local Monterey County charities. And we're going to be asking people to donate to one of these, the charity of their choice, in lieu of, paying to watch the show.
Very nice.
Yeah, so we're just trying to think of multiple ways that we can be of benefit to the community, during this time, and have a great time ourselves. I mean, it's not all out of the goodness of our hearts. We're
right.
we love this stuff, and we're having a blast doing it. So
great. That's great.
Yeah.
All right. Well, we're coming up on about an hour. Is there anything else that you'd like to throw into the hat here before we wrap things up?
I guess really, if I, had just a moment to say anything else, it would be to thank all the many people who over the last several years have been instrumental in my life and bringing me to where I am today. Lee Brady and Sophania and this friend of mine who passed away in 2018, who is a wonderful friend to my family and my children. It's like a father to my kids, always there for us, and also built so many of our sets and props, and just the kindest heart in the world. Robert Parco, and so I lost my Lucinda, who got me back on this path. Cherie, who got me started with, producing again with Curated Words, and Ebony Harris for her writers group, because not only did I write an entire book and working on a second one through that group, it hooked me up with Cherie and, Ayaz Pirani, Deb Bussman, all of my writing teachers over the years, and just all of the people, Carrie Newhouse especially, Nelson Basden, you, Scott, and all the many people who've performed in these events. Oh, Sam Danielson, who's done video for us for free. Uh-huh. And he does really nice stuff. And the people who've written, Marie Butcher, Idee Medina, Nicole Henares, Mark Zegans, Mark, who's always there, like if I need some advice, and who's always doing something interesting, I always have a wonderful time talking to you because we both come up with ideas when we talk to each other. And all these wonderful, wonderful people and the creative community of Jetty Grant. That's another one. He's actually created music for us. He and River Nabai and Trevor. Oh goodness, I can't think of Trevor's last name. Anyway, all those wonderful people. I am so deeply grateful to be alive today and healthy and able to do all these wonderful things. And last but not least, in fact, most, my kids, Talon and Quana, because they grounded me in this life. And if not for them, I don't know where I'd be.
All right. Well, I want to thank you so much for participating in our oral history of the Monterey County Theater. And I have to say, your productions are unique, and I hope we've stimulated some interest in broader audiences for your thing. So thank you very much, and we look forward to what empathy core.
Yeah, and
I'll just
I should quickly say one more thing. Our shows we're called Eclectic Collective, but sometimes we're also called Erotic Eclectic. So when we're doing live stuff again, if you see that those two things, those are the events that I help.
Great. Okay. Thanks very much, Janice. We'll see you somewhere soon in the future.
And thanks for all you guys do. Have a great day.
All right. Thanks. You too. Bye-bye.